Good evening, good evening. Nandito na naman po tayo mga kaibigan. So, this is more of just parang may online notebook. This part of the channel is more of like my way of taking down notes about an idea, about a concept that I came across with that I got very, very interested in. And I'm hoping that um, there's some lessons in it. I hope there's some sense in it. This is practically a theoretical reapplication. This is not set in stone anywhere. I'm not sure if, because I haven't so far, hindi ko pa siya nakikita anywhere else. It has been mentioned, but in a different context. I think Dr. Jordan Peterson was the first one who I've seen, kasi I'm still limited to the research I've done. I picked this up the 14th, so that was 4 days ago. Tama ba? Just a moment. Yes, I started digging on this September 14th, 2021. So this is just a mental exercise. If people would be interested to discuss this or talk about this, please just let me know. Reach out. I'll be more than happy to give you the document that I wrote down, stuff like that. Sir Warren, good evening. Sabihin mo lang sa akin, send ko sa'yo yung link kung gusto mo. So let me just read it off kasi I want to take note of it, para fresh pa sa isip ko, as best as I can. So, the Red Queen problem is uh, based out of um, Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass. It was written by a really profound person. So in that story, there's the Red Queen, and she stated something that piqued the interest of a lot of people who digested it and even came out with a formula. It's a theory in biological evolution. So basically, that's where I took this from, and I'm trying to reapply it to somewhere else. So here it goes. In my kingdom, you have to run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. So basically, as Dr. Jordan Peterson put it, everything is after you all the time, and you're not smart enough to do something about it. And this actually forms into um, the original application of this is in the lines of evolutionary biology. It explains a divergent phenomena of sex at all the levels of individuals and constant evolutionary arms race between the competing species. In 1973, Leigh Van Valen pulled a thread that acts as a metaphor that's more appropriate with the evolutionary arms race, so to speak. Um, it occurs in the organisms in the environment, and by observing the constants in the probabilities of extinction in the families across geologic time. So yung minute changes na ginagawa nung isang particular species to survive is passed down from one generation to the next, minor or major improvements that keep them surviving in the environment. So how does these families of organisms survive? Is it random, or is there an improvement passed down over time? Every improvement in one species will lead to a selective advantage for that species. Variations will normally lead continuous to increase in fitness in the species or the other. So we'll have to look into yung coexistence. In in the environment, we'll always see, in nature, we'll always see predator and prey coexistence. So that's one of the things na dinidiscuss dun sa theory in application of evolutionary biology. So would a co-evolution of the species in the ecosystem negate the improvement of an evolved species? We'll cite a perfect example later. In the circle of predators and preys, adaptation creates an ever-moving standstill of status in the scale of life. So in evolution, as we can perfectly see, let's put the rabbit as the prey and then let's say the fox as the predator. So if the rabbit evolves to run faster and run quicker, the fox will of course not be able to catch the prey. So it may die out. So in turn, yung evolutionary coexistence nga nila with every improvement na ginagawa ni rabbit, the fox compensates for yung evolution niya, yung speed. Bigger mass, it's also part of it. So maraming posibleng mangyari or maraming posibleng improvements na mangyari. But basically, it's just a standstill. They're just running on a flat circle, past, now, future. So there's just that continuous circle. Now you either evolve or die, regardless of your position across generations of your species. So you are just another version of that particular species, maybe a little faster, pero your predators are always ever present. So um, this is where my position comes in. Kasi there's also an aspect of this exercise, yung buong parang standing still issue nila in psychology. I will cite a few things, but again, I'm basically a student, so please don't take my words as gospel. Do your own research. I would really love for you to look at the works of Dr. Wait, this is Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, and Dr. Jordan Peterson. These are two major influences dito sa research ko na to. So I'm just reading off of the notebook. So I just want to have it on record para marinig ko rin if I'm going to expound on this further or just drop it or whatever. So going back, um, we'll try to digest that and then move on yung uh, noticeable things or noticeable similarities ng application of the theory. So from there, we can say as far as compensation and evolution from predator and prey, then again, regardless of the position on the scale across generation of your species. So let's try to apply it from a point of view of identifying predatory traits in humans. Okay? So predators in this context, if while I'm discussing this, just so you don't get confused, predators, I will be saying the word predator, but that will be in the context of abusers, physical, sexual, emotional abusers. This will be what I mean. Okay. So again, this is just an abstract, basically like a framework. This will be a work in progress. So predators, in the context of abusers, let's put it as parents, colleagues, friends, maybe um, sexual predators. Okay, so we can see the dynamics of this relationship, and then once we are able to identify these predatory traits, will be able to remove the power that they have in turn that makes us into their prey. That's my objective. That's the main reason why I'm doing this, to empower preys so that they can outlive the predator, basically starve out the predator. Kasi I'm noticing the parasitic aspect, yung parasitic aspect of psychological trauma, in the context of repetitive patterns of trauma cycles. I think it falls into social and close familial dynamics. I'm seeing it in the context of abuse. I think we'll see it from verbal, physical, emotional, sexual, as well as normalized abusive behaviors passed down from parent to child throughout generations. I was looking at um, early formation of behaviors, kaya medyo masalimuot yung research kasi it's not a singular line, eh. I'm not traveling a singular line. Oh, good evening, Jayman Grayhead. Good evening, sir. Good evening. Thank you for listening. So, going back to that, ang iniisip ko kasi when I started this, I thought it could just fall under like in a clinical sense. Kaso medyo marami na rin siyang tinatamaan. It even touched on addictive behaviors. So I think we'll also maybe touch on different types of trauma. So I think it's really like too many strings to pull. So I won't pull on all the threads at once. I'll just focus on what I have researched so far. Okay. So with where we left off, yung close familial dynamics of trauma cycles, especially with normalized abusive behaviors passed down from parent to child. Kasi parang napansin ko, a parent usually bases the whole scheme of their parenting style, or let's say their parenting approach based off of their personal experience, or let's say someone else's experience, or observed phenomenon. Excuse me. So doon, if mali na yung input, it could just be passed down paulit-ulit until someone breaks that cycle. And I want to apply this theory, the Red Queen theory, in that aspect. I want people to be able to identify the wrongs dun sa whole cycle, and then break that particular cycle, especially dun sa child development, kasi I think I hope we have enough time to get to it. I'll cite the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. I still haven't dug too deep. I just barely scratched the surface. So the personality traits that you allow to be a prey or weaknesses could be physical, psychological, or intellectual, maybe educational as well, emotional, and then your spiritual weaknesses, etc. So, by identifying the patterns of behavior or environments that causes us hurt, pain, trauma, etc., in all that aspect, we can now start the process of evolving individually, and our psychological evolution from physical manifestations of the psychological phenomena like neurosis, trauma, dependencies, habit cycles, environmental choices. We are treating the individual When I say individual, what I mean is the environment or the species of both predator and prey. Because you could be listening to this right now, being a victim as well as a predator as well. So, parang napansin ko kasi twofold, eh. With yung misconception mo or your misunderstanding of your situation, you could be victimizing people around you. So once you identify your predatory traits, you can change it. If you're doing it wrong, if you're like also, spreading yung trauma mo, yung issues mo sa ibang tao. So, unconsciously or consciously, you might be passing that negative vibe or maybe causing too much hurt to the people around you. So you're creating more monsters basically. So that's what we're trying to find a solution for. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but maybe it's a way for us to break that cycle. So if we're able to break that particular cycle and adapt appropriately, again, we will be able to starve the predator, change your social circle, change your habits or your environment. So that assures our survival and the continuation of the species. In example, the children that will not fall prey to the same cycle if properly exposed and educated about the issues of your past, or let's say the unresolved issues that are now perpetuating uh, through generations. Let's say the physical, let's put it in context. Theoretically, yung nakasanayan, let's say, ng mother mo is heavy-handed child rearing, especially from like 2 generations ago. It was normal to have physical beatings or physical repercussions of discipline. Hindi puro salita lang dati. Dati may palo or actually pambubugbog na nga technically. Pero that was normal in that particular context. Mali, parusahan para matandaan. Kasi most often than not, we will remember more if there is a physical memory, muscle memory dun sa situation. So it has gravity and impact um, more with the pain, physical pain. So hindi pa natin nako-consider nun yung psychological trauma na nako-cause nun across time. So as it goes along, siyempre kinalalakihan, nakakalimutan, it becomes normalized na yung pamamalo, et cetera, et cetera. So ikaw naging magulang ka, you'll of course do the same thing kasi you think it's right. Wala namang mali dun kasi yun ang ginawa sa'yo, eh. So you continuously progress with the cycle. So next generation does the same thing. So naputol nga because of the new generation, may mga dati na ring anak na parang sabi nila, hindi dapat ganito, hindi dapat sinasaktan, et cetera, et cetera. Excuse me, they were disagreeing with corporal punishment. But then again, we see the repercussions of that particular concern. So if you take away corporal punishment, we'll see that in example, perfect example, it gets abused without um, without proper punishment or examples of discipline, then hindi natututunan ng maayos. They can say it's just mere words. Wala ng gravity, wala ng gravitas. It even applies to the law. If the law is toothless, then senseless. Joy, wala akong kausap, sarili ko lang. Parang video notebook 'to. So yun. So looking into that, I think we'll have to reconsider a lot of things when we finally um, get to the bottom of it. Hopefully. So moving to that, it's not always the strongest of the species or the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change that survive, sabi nga ni Charles Darwin. So here, I will just open this. All right. So the vicious cycle from every early stage of growth and development, the structure of fundamental human needs have been askewed. This is my words, okay? This is my observation. Sorry. So what I mean for most often than not, it's been skewed an early formation of unhealthy developmental misassociation. Similar, I'm not sure if it's the right terminology, pero I see it as similar to addiction has been seeded into the forming of children, early mental development or child development. We have been seeding yung addictive behavior. Um, at an early age, parang we have started to introduce shut up and go. Instead na ina-address natin yung issue, we have reinforced yung parang reward system. Children are being given a reward simply to address an unwanted behavior. So yung let's say umiiyak yung bata since we're let's put it in the context of 3 years old and up. Uh, toddler. Good evening, underground culture. Sir Diego Bandido, good evening. Pasensya na kayo, I'm just rambling on kasi I just want to take note of this online para hindi na ako magsulat ng magsulat sa notebook ko. I'm running out of space. So yun, we have been reinforcing a wrong system. So umiiyak yung bata, toddler, we give yung let's say gatas, pagkain, etc. Without properly addressing bakit ba siya umiiyak? Ano ba yung problema? Since we are unable to properly communicate, we assume na kaya siya umiiyak kasi gutom siya. So yung pala basa yung diaper or gusto lang magpahawak, kailangan yung physical touch kasi that's also part of yung need structure niya. I would strongly suggest look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not sure if we'll be able to cover that, but I'll try to include it as best as I can. Ipaplow through ko na lang 'to. So going back, we are, uh, tatak, it is rewarded with a toy or something that gives it a reason to stop for the moment. So as human beings, from the mammalian family, we start from a very weak form right after birth. We have no means of survival without a caring environment. So without parents, without people to take care of us, we are unable to survive and unable to communicate. We have the longest developmental time frame. So from birth, usually hindi pa tayo mapapakinabangan completely until the age of early adolescence, mga 12 years old. So kaya merong mga batang nagtatrabaho na at that age or even younger if they get to mature earlier. Yun nga, nag-evolve sila earlier. So we'll just move on from that. So without the caring environment, so there again could be outliers, but the majority will die if not cared for. So from this alone, we are already being seeded with a reliant relationship structure. Slowly and surely, we are becoming wired to obey for survival. All of this are imprinted, most often than not, biologically as well as psychologically as we grow. The dependency is reinforced further. Different, of course, parenting approaches will now impact the child's development as he reaches or as she reaches a point of maturity or at least basic understanding. Yun nga yung sinasabi kong at least 12 years old usually. Now, the child's development blah, 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 or basic understanding of the transactional nature of this relationship. So I just want to go back to that. Parenting approaches will now impact the child's development as he or she reaches a point of maturity or basic understanding of the transactional nature of this relationship. Because basically, we are trading one thing for the other. For example, best example is if I'm good, mom is happy, and if mom is happy, I get treats. If I get so if I cry, yun yung negative siguro, I see it as a negative. If I cry, if I act out, I get what I want, tantrums, etc. So these are some factors that we have to look into as well, especially if we have children. We have to find out yung issues niyan. So some people, if not many, are actually afraid to heal because of their entire identity is centered around the trauma they have experienced. They have no idea who they are beyond that trauma, and that uncertainty is terrifying. So since nung bata pa sila, hindi na sila aware kung ano talaga yung root causes nung issues nila up to an adult stage, they'll just continue on that particular cycle. Especially in our situation dito sa Philippines, reaching out to professional psychologists are parang taboo or looked down to. Siguro dahil nga dun sa context ng parang siraulo ka ba? Hindi ko kailangan ng ano, hindi ko kailangan ng gano'n or whatever. So, I think we have to re reevaluate that, our perception about, psychological health, especially medyo, how do you say that? Medyo close tayo, as a culture, hindi tayo masyado open to talk about issues, abuse, things like that. So medyo nagkakaroon ng kahiyaan pagdating dun. So we have to really understand ano yung causes na nagfo-form dun sa behaviors natin. Lalo na kung meron kang history of abuse, mental health, mga ganun. So hi ma'am, hi sir or ma'am, uh, Zcat, sorry. Good evening. Sorry talagang basically sinasabi ko lang 'to sa camera so that, I can have it recorded and then I'll digest it or add on it, write on a notebook again when I get another one. So we'll now go to Dr. Gabor Mate. He is, uh, how how should I call him? I think he's one of the best experts, by far into child development and addiction. Let me just read his definition of addiction. Any behavior that a person finds relief in and craves in the short term, but suffers negative consequences in the long term and does not give it up despite negative consequences. So I think it also applies to yun nga yung transactional nature of a relationship. So minsan kahit sablay yung relationship because we have gotten used to that and we have mistaken yung relief for yung temporary relief. Biology din kasi I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of biology, dopamine, serotonin, etc. So that could have been yun nga, mistrained, mali yung training sa'yo mula nung pagkabata mo. You have misassociated or mali yung association mo dun sa pleasure. So, yung release nun, that's Ferber method they do in the West kinda messed up in my opinion. Yes sir, Sir Diego Bandido. Thank you very much Zcat for subscribing. Thank you very much. So yun, again yung negative reinforcement, yung maling growth process or developmental process yung associations natin na mali from our early childhood going up to yung formation na basically nung identity mo, from toddler age going to, let's say, early adolescence, 12 or 13. It may vary kung lalaki, babae, especially sa environment. Kasi puwedeng maaga kang ah, mentally mature or psychologically mature because of your environment kasi namatay yung nanay, namatay yung tatay, mga gano'n. Circumstantial, circumstantial, um, what's that? Circumstantial, what's the right word? Factors, circumstantial factors that affect your development, tapos yung environment also. So, going to that, yung sa YouTube na video, I would strongly suggest check it out. This is, again by Dr. Gabor Mate. Please look for it. How childhood trauma leads to addiction. So that's where I got uh, partially this association. So that's from After School, yun yung YouTube channel. If you wanna go down that rabbit hole, that's also one good source of information. So Dr. Mate cited that attachment is a non-negotiable need as well as authenticity. And this is where I believe the mismatch of I don't think the right word is mismatch, but let's use it. The mismatch of intention or motivation for a particular action done to the child is embedded intentionally or again unintentionally by the parent or guardian, depending on the context of the situation. So, um, yung intentional or unintentional misdirection siguro will again fall dun sa child fussing or pag-iyak nung bata during that, early developmental stage, yung ire-reward natin instead of addressing yung dapat na concern. So, I think we have to look into that. Don't worry, I'm digging into that. I may have a separate episode for that. As a continuation for this kasi basically ito nga sinusulat ko lang, on video yung buong theory and will expound on it. And, as far as operant, conditioning, this is conscious or unconscious again began in positive reinforcement for unwanted behavior and the underlying cause that it may be the underlying cause that becomes unconscious behaviors or motivations for the growing child carried into adulthood manifesting as anxieties, aberrant behavior, or even leading to addictive behavior. Kaya nga kaya nadampot ko si Dr. Gabor, that's why I got to that website. It's because I was looking into um, motivations or I was looking more into heavy developmental attitudes that we have or probably unconscious attitudes that we have. Pinakamalaking factor sa akin kasi nakikita ko yung believer kasi ako nung Bells and Dogs, si Pavlov. I think that would be yung parang root cause nito. So from an early age, re-reinforce natin ng re-reinforce yung ganito without correcting it properly, then we're creating basically monsters without us knowing it, especially in this day and age. Um, Makikita at makikita nung bata na um, masusuportahan pa siya kapagka mali yung environment na kinalalagyan niya, especially in social media, 'di ba? So, makakahanap ka nung mga magre-reinforce lalo dun sa aberrant behavior mo. Hindi ka mahal ng magulang mo, putang-ina walang kuwenta yung tatay mo, ayaw ka bigyan ng PlayStation 5. Eh, putang-ina hindi nga puwedeng bumili ng PlayStation 5 kasi bagsak yung grades mo, hindi ka nag-aaral, et cetera. Siguro hindi naman gagawin yun without reason, 'di ba? Without, without due reason. I don't think parents, deprive their children of the things that they want. Kaso kasi we have to really understand also as children that, we have needs and wants. Siguro mas gusto nung magulang na mag-focus ka muna dun sa need mo talaga, instead dun sa wants. So I think we have to look into that as well, um as a parent and as an individual. We'll have to look into that. And there, we can even trace damage as far back as the womb, biological imprinting via in utero from mother to child. Again, that is from Dr. Gabon Mate. May Uh, try to search the title Conversations with Tom, Dr. Gabon Mate. He goes deeply into that. Mahaba yung, ah, excuse me, conversation nila tungkol doon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. The noble guy. J-Man Greyhead, thank you very much. Zcat, Underground Culture, thank you. So, isa yun nga, tulad ng sinabi ni Jayman Greyhead, yung ill manner dahil sa mga online games, they have normalized trash talking. Trash talking has become an art form. So yun, isa pa yun. If we don't have proper guidance, especially in social media, we can go down the rabbit hole of misinformation, wrong, uh, what's the word, reinforced, attitudes. Kasi lagi tayong magkikita-kita ng like minds, eh. So magse-search ka ng magse-search ng peer group na magre-reinforce dun sa tinitignan mo, dun sa gusto mo palang makita. So, this is just basically scratching the surface of connecting two totally unrelated subjects. So again, this is just um, my basic research and glossing over of the Red Queen problem. If you have like questions, please feel free to reach out. Please feel free. Let me know. Um, Again, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We'll try to discuss this even further. We'll see how far this rabbit hole goes. I'll do this every Saturday or maybe I'll move it on a Sunday para mabigyan ng ibang oras. But I'll still again continue on yung usual format ko, interviews. That's the main format. And then I'll I'll look into this further. I've reached out to a lot of professionals in this field, and actually some of them are even unrelated. Pero I see their point of views. Nakikita ko yung parang input na mabibigay nila sa atin so that we can further this and see if this is something worth pursuing. At least to find out if we can have another like framework or guideline so that we can identify yung traits na we should change, traits that we could help the evolutionary process of not only ourselves but those that come after us, then I think it will be an endeavor worth pursuing. Again, really appreciate all of your time. Thank you very much for joining me. And I'll just come back to this. Please put your comments or suggestions, things that you would like to add to this, or things that we can scratch the surface further. Lipat naman tayo sa kabilang eskwelahan dun sa underground culture. Tignan natin kung anong topic. Ewan ko, nagkain laban ata daw kanina eh. Hindi ko pa napapanood eh. I still don't know. So magka-catch up lang ako sa kanila and we'll go from there. Again, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And as usual, as always, life is about making choices. Choose the right one. Thank you. Have a